Somewhere inside one of these models is the plain fact that the capital of France is Paris. It also knows roughly how to finish a limerick and how a loop works in code. But here is the strange part I want you to sit with. Nobody ever sat down and typed any of that in. There's no file of facts inside it, no grammar rulebook, no lesson plan anywhere. So that's the puzzle this episode is about, and it comes down to one word: pre-training. Here is the question I want to land by the end. Nobody taught the model grammar and nobody typed in the facts. So where does everything it knows actually come from? By the end, you'll watch the knowledge appear on a real model with the numbers on screen. And I promise, the answer is simpler and stranger than you'd guess. Let's remember what we've actually built together across this course. We turned text into tokens, turned tokens into vectors, and stacked attention into a tall machine. But all of that was only the shape of the machine, the wiring and the plumbing. Every connection in there has a number sitting on it, a weight, and right now those numbers are pure noise. So the machine can run, but it's an empty machine that knows absolutely nothing. And I don't want you to take my word for that, so watch what happens if I run it right now. This is our actual tiny model, before we've trained it at all, and here is what it writes. That's not a bug, that's just what a machine full of random weights produces. It's a machine with a perfect body and an empty head. So the real question is, how do we fill it? The whole idea is almost embarrassingly simple, so let me walk one step of it slowly. We take a real sentence from a real book and we cover up the next word. Then we ask the empty machine one thing: what word comes next? The model doesn't hand back a single word though. It hands back a probability for every possible token, a whole spread of maybes. Because it's still noise inside, those guesses come out basically random. The right word, Matt, gets about the same tiny chance as something ridiculous like banana. Now we do the one move that makes learning possible. We check the answer. We already know the true next word was Matt because we took this sentence from a real book. So we compare what the model guessed against what actually came next. That gap between its guess and the truth gets boiled down into one number, and that number has a name. We call it the loss, and it's just a score for how wrong the guess was. A big loss means it guessed badly, and a small loss means it was close. Right now, since the model is noise, that loss is high, which is no surprise, and it's actually useful, because a high loss tells us how much room there is to improve. Here is the move that everything hinges on, and it's the heart of the whole episode. We ask a question about every single weight in the machine. Did this number push the guess better or worse? Then we nudge each weight a tiny step in the direction that would have made the loss smaller. Not a big jump, just the smallest of steps. And in a big model, that means billions of weights moving at once. So one training step is really just this: guess, measure the miss, and take one small step downhill. Let me give you a picture for what downhill means, because it's the whole thing. Imagine the loss as a landscape where high ground is bad guesses and the low valley is good ones. On every step, the model feels which way the ground slopes down, and it takes one small step that way. Do that enough times and it walks itself down into the valley where its guesses are good. That whole process has a name: gradient descent, and honestly that's all it is. Measure the miss, then step downhill. And this isn't a metaphor I'm asking you to trust, so here is the real thing. This is the actual loss curve from the tiny model we are training for this course. Every tick along the bottom is another step of guess. Measure the miss, step downhill. Watch it come down. It starts high and shaky, it drops fast, and then it settles into a slow crawl. That falling line is the sound of an empty machine slowly getting less wrong. A number falling on a chart is a bit abstract, so let me show you what it actually feels like. Here is what our model writes at 3 points along that same training run. At the very start, it's the noise you already saw, just scrambled characters. Partway down the curve, real words start forming, spelling clicks into place, and punctuation shows up. By the bottom of the curve, it's writing sentences that actually read like the book it learned from. Now, here is what I find genuinely wild about this. Nobody added a spelling rule between those samples, and nobody wrote a grammar module. The exact same loop was running the whole time, guess a token and step downhill. Spelling and grammar just fell out of it because you can't predict real text well without them. The model learned to write by trying to guess what comes next over and over. So step back with me, because this is the answer to the question we opened on. The only thing we ever asked this model to do was guess the next word. We never taught it that Paris is the capital of France. But across millions of sentences that mention Paris, the cheapest way to guess the next word well is to actually store that fact. So it stored it not because we told it to, but because the fact helped it lose less. That's the whole trick, and it's why these models feel like they know things. Facts, grammar, the shape of an argument, none of it was programmed in by a person. All of it precipitated out of one dumb goal repeated at enormous scale: predict the next token. Our little model only read a few books, so it only picked up a little. The real ones run this same loop across a huge slice of the internet, which is why they seem to know almost everything. So let's answer what we started with. Where does everything the model knows come from if nobody ever taught it? It comes from one move repeated until it sticks: guess the next word, measure the miss, take one small step downhill. Run that on enough text and knowledge doesn't get installed, it precipitates. But there is a catch buried in all of this, and it's a big one. A machine trained only to sound plausible will sometimes sound perfectly plausible and be flat wrong. Next time we'll see exactly why these models hallucinate, and why that isn't a bug at all. It falls straight out of the same prediction loop you just watched.